They're okay.
For $1 million, point out Guyana on that map. For $1 million. What continent is Guyana on?
Yoo-hoo.
Yoo-hoo. Live, more or less, from Las Vegas. I don't know how we do this. With Mark Anthony, I'm Rick Rose, and this is Good Sports. Well, we're looking at the map. I can see the map behind you, man. Where's Guyana? On there. They're bound to produce something sports-wise sooner or later. Just by sheer numbers.
Yeah, but a bobsledding team or something.
Well, long distance runners. There's several of them. They're making their way up all the way up to Southern California and Southern Texas and Southern New Mexico and Southern Arizona and Southern whatever. That wall climbing. If Trump gets elected, that'll be the new Olympic sport: wall climbing or tunneling. Hey, the drug lord escaped the prison because they made a mile-long tunnel. Okay, when the Chinese built the Great Wall of China, there was no real dig under the damn thing. Now, I think things have changed a little bit. So, anyway, wall climbing, yeah, that's coming.
Just ask the poll.
Okay, sad day in sports, but a great day in heaven, I'm sure. Yogi Berra, he of the 10 World Series championships with the Yankees in 18 seasons. Keep in mind, that is when a championship better than every other year. When there's 30 teams or 24 teams at the time, and you win one every other year, think of how many careers are now doomed to never getting to win a World Series championship because Yogi Berra and his Yankees teammates won 10 in 18 years of playing. And Yogi Berra passing away, he took the Mets to the World Series. He was with the Yankees, and Steinbrenner fired him after like 18 games of a season. Yogi said he'd never go back. He got the shit end of the stick, and he didn't like it. And finally, he relented. They had a Yogi Berra day, and they kind of kissed and made up a little bit. But I think he knew Steinbrenner was dying, and Yogi went back. And always a real treat. One of the most gifted catchers, and if you've ever played the catcher position, one of the most gifted players ever. 5'8", the kind of the perfect size for a catcher. Not now. Guys run into. Well, now they don't run into him anymore. So you could be a Q-tip back there now, as long as you can catch the ball. But Yogi was a master at calling pitches for his pitchers. He's the guy that was behind the plate when Don Larson pitched the perfect game in the '56 World Series, and jumped into Don Larson's arms. One of the greatest videos, and I guess they made a still of the same thing. He runs around the first base side of the batter for the last strikeout of the perfect game, and jumps into Don Larson's arms. And Larson was just kind of walking up. Oh, look, I got this little Italian cat from St. Louis in my arms. And Yogi Berra and Joe Garagiola were buddies. We're both from St. Louis, and the Cardinals took Joe Garagiola over Yogi Berra, and not to take anything away from Joe Garagiola, another hell of a ball player. And imagine that. Imagine these guys being buddies during the day. But anyway, the Yankees ended up with Yogi Berra. One of the scouts saw him at a camp where he was cut by the Cardinals, and they went ahead and signed him. And 10 World Series victories later, Yogi Berra, one of the greatest baseball players. I think he was a 3-time MVP, and certainly a tough deal to do, catching that many games and doing all that. And the mental, people don't understand. A second baseman thinks, okay, this guy hit it to me last time, or to center, or whatever. That's what he's thinking. Every single pitch, the catcher is in on this. Every single thing sets up that next move. If a guy swings and misses at a particular pitch, then that tells what the next pitch should be. And a guy that can do that successfully has so much energy into it mentally. And Yogi Berra was an absolute master at calling games. He had Whitey Ford, he had Mel Stottlemyre, he had all these Yankees great pitchers. And he did it, and you know, he improved his fielding. It was a real mark on his black mark on his career early on, and he improved to lead. I think he won a couple of Gold Gloves at catcher, and really cut down his errors, and also improved his throwing percentage of guys trying to steal on him. So Yogi Berra was the complete package, and certainly known for being as funny as funny gets, and not necessarily always on purpose. But they call them Yogi-isms, and you know, it ain't over till it's over. And it gets dark early out here, and all those kind of things. Those are all things that Yogi says, and said he swears that he did not say them on purpose. It just came out that way, that they were funny. So anyway, our thoughts and prayers to Yogi's family and all his fans. And I think it's great. Guy who's 90 years old and still has baseball fans, still has people, kids that never saw him play except on YouTube or something like that. Now, you know, it's not that they ever get to see him again. And by the way, I think it was yesterday, Gordie Howe, who was, everybody had him with a toe tag on 8 months ago, visited the Red Wings. Mr. Hockey visited the Red Wings training camp and went through and shook hands with all the players and whatever. And he had a stroke, and his son said that you know, things weren't looking good for Mr. Hockey, and they sent him to Mexico, and he had 2 stem cell treatments, Mark. And certainly enough improvement where the guy's walking through the training facility, went to his granddaughter's wedding. So maybe there is tremendous hope with the stem cells, and that for degenerative diseases, some of which are very much mirror what you see the damages from with concussions, whether it's football players or bull riders or hockey players or baseball players that might get hit, or, you know, there's so many people that have that helmet on there for a reason, because if you don't protect the head, it doesn't really matter what happens to anything else there. So, but anyway, Mr. Hockey up and around, and that certainly is a good sight. But he and Yogi Berra, two pretty much contemporaries. They played very, very similar kind of games. They play. You knew that was a tough little SOB there, and unless you had a real good reason, you would go mess with somebody else. You did not, you know, you didn't necessarily challenge Yogi Berra. I mean, he wasn't in a lot of fights just because people were smart enough to say, nope, not going to do that. I think I'll go slap around Elston Howard. He's sitting over there on the bench waiting for Yogi's career to be over, and you know, it's got to be a funner deal. So anyway, Yogi Berra dead at 90 years of age, shortly after his wife passed away in 2014, and it doesn't surprise a lot of people that he passed shortly thereafter. But
90 years.
Again, 90 years, yes, absolutely. And we want to, I do have a moment of reflection here. A dear friend, my neighbor across the street, passed away this last week, and he was a guy who, as interesting as it gets, if you're talking to him, he was a cop out of Florida. He served in the military. He was in the Navy, and before they had frogmen that were called frogmen or Navy SEALs or whatever, he was a guy that could swim well because he was from Florida, and used to being in the water. And they put him on a detail where, when Alan Shepard, America's first astronaut, went into space and came back down, they splashed down in the ocean, and they dropped 3 guys into the ocean to put a flotation device around it, a big floaty, and attach it to the space capsule so it wouldn't sink. And he was one of those 3. He was wow. One of the first 3 people to see Alan Shepard as he returned to Earth, America's first spaceman. He was also in Cuba during the Revolution, and fought alongside and got out not too long before the Bay of Pigs invasion. And some of the things that he has seen and done, and his name was Dan Alred, and we're going to miss him, and he passed away of cancer last week. So again, thoughts and prayers out to him. And it's one of the tough things. Everybody wants to get old. You know, that fountain of youth, that comes with the price, and that price is outliving people that you like. So yeah. Anyway, people that you don't like, you never seem to outlive them by long enough. Cam Chancellor, finally returning to the Seahawks, he of the Legion of Doom, the self-proclaimed winners of one, losers of one. And, you know, they're going to blame the last loss in the Super Bowl to Pete Carroll and the ridiculous call down on the 1-yard line to pass instead of hand the ball to the sure thing Marshawn Lynch, or the damn near sure thing. But Chancellor back. You know, if you're going to bitch about losing on the last play of the game, what about the play in the second quarter when you could have done something and didn't, and then it didn't work out, or you should have scored and didn't? You know, so if it comes down to the last play of the game, you probably have many other places in that game that you could have done something different to make it not come down to the last play of the game and already seal the victory. So, but Cam Chancellor held out, had a valid contract, Mark, held out. 2 games in, the Seahawks are 0-2, and then now he comes in and he thinks he's going to ride in on the white horse and be the cavalry. And I, as if I was his teammate, the first chance I got to step on his foot, I would, or to put icy hot in his jock strap, or to piss in his Gatorade bottle, or all 3 every chance I got. That's not, a teammate doesn't let you go through training camp alone and then come in 2 weeks into 2 losses into the season. Oh, I'm here. Hi, guys. Screw you. Yeah.
But
I'd pay for somebody to go by his house and kiss his wife. I'm just saying. All things considered.
So if that happens, or are you going to be like moving or what?
If what happens?
Somebody goes by, buys his house, and
kisses his wife?
Yeah.
This guy's got to be used to it by now. He's a schmuck. Anyway, Cam Chancellor going back to the Seahawks, had a valid contract. They just renegotiated his contract, Mark. And you can't do it if you do it for him, then you got to do it for everybody. It's like when you're a parent. The GMs don't. Everybody's making money. The frickin' Cowboys are worth $4 billion. Jerry Jones bought them. I believe the price was $60 million, and he got the stadium too. And now they're worth $4 billion. He could damn near run for president.
Before we get too far along here, okay, we're talking about. No, not yet. But I'm figuring you've got to have a Moses Malone story.
Moses Malone came out of high school at the same time as two other young men, and Daryl Dawkins, Chocolate Thunder, was the second of that. Daryl Dawkins went to the NBA because Moses Malone went to the ABA, and Moses Malone was drafted by the Utah Stars. And they had a guy my age playing, and boy, what a hell of a player. He'd been a hell of an NBA player in the 50s and the 60s, and his name was Zelmo Beatty. And Moses Malone got drafted by the Utah Stars and went straight out of high school into the pro basketball and tore it up. Moses Malone was from somewhere small in Virginia, and the man could play basketball. He went to Philadelphia, won the championship there with Dr. J, and then Charles Barkley came along. And if you look at Charles Barkley and Moses Malone together, there wasn't a rebound. Yeah, and Barkley absolutely just idolized him and looked up and played very much like Moses. Man, when Moses Malone was close to the ball, you might as well have turned around and gone the other direction, or jump straight up if it was on the offensive boards, because good things were going to happen. Moses Malone was an absolute winner, and him and Daryl Dawkins dying within a month, 6 weeks of each other. The two guys that came out from high school, and Spencer Haywood had gone from Trinidad State Junior College into the pros with the Denver Rockets, and that was the first break in that where guys didn't graduate from college or stayed out until their class graduated, which is what happened with Wilt Chamberlain. He couldn't join the NBA until his college class graduated. And these guys said, no, we're going to go in. I'm not big on college. And Spencer Haywood went from Trinidad State Junior College to the Denver Rockets and really opened the floodgates on the dam. And then Moses Malone, Daryl Dawkins, and a third guy. And this is always the answer to a trivia question that nobody ever gets, Mark. Do you have any idea who the third man was that came out of straight out of high school in the same year as two Hall of Famers, Moses Malone and Daryl Dawkins? And they were thought of in very, very equal terms. All three of them. They were kind of unknown quantities. People didn't go to a lot of high school games or whatever. You know, you had to rely on somebody else's opinion, a college scout's opinion or whatever to get a read on these guys. But very highly thought of too. And the third and the only one that survives, and they all three came out at the same time. You know who it is?
No.
Kid from Northern California. His name was Bill Willoughby, and his name Poodles. Bill Poodles Willoughby. And he never did much. He, as a lot of big guys do, he had some foot problems and some of those kind of things, and kind of ran out of talent once he got to the NBA. Certainly wasn't ready for an NBA career, not near like Moses Malone and Daryl Dawkins were. So, yeah, a couple of, some changes. And again, both guys dying in there. I think they were both 60 years old. Daryl Dawkins and Moses Malone, and I mean, two huge presences on the court. But for basketball also, I mean, Daryl Dawkins was about as entertaining an athlete as ever there was. Chocolate Thunder, and he's the guy that used to break the backboards and get out of the way, and it would delay the game for 45 minutes, and he'd sit over on the on the bench and eat popcorn and maybe have a hot dog or something, and then go back, and once they got the glass replaced on the backboard, he'd go back and play the rest of the game. Damn his mom Sue with the Dolphins, by the way. Speaking of clowns, a guy I don't think deserves to be in the NFL as it goes now. He's the highest paid defender the Miami Dolphins, but a really white elephant from the Lions, and Damakong Suh has a grand total of two tackles so far this year. The highest paid defensive player in the NFL, higher paid than J.J. Watt. Higher paid than everybody. Higher, yeah, that's it. Some teams in the NFL do not have the salary on their defensive line and their linebacking core all together equal what Damakong Suh gets from the Dolphins per year, and he's certainly not living up to his mouth and his attitude and his hype. And I think the sooner this guy's out of the league, the better the league will be. Go ahead.
Yeah, but how do you get to be the highest paid guy and have two tackles?
You have a good agent. It's all bullcrap. He was in a great system at Detroit. Listen, he started. Detroit has always been in the black and blue division. They're proud members of that, and they play a different brand of football in Detroit than they do in Miami. And they do things, and so they build their team to those specs. That's the frame that they bring in for the car they're driving in that race, and it's a different vehicle. They went to kind of a sports car thing in Miami, and they were trying to get tougher, so they brought this guy in who's a cheap shot chicken shit. And honestly, I do not see how he has not had a serious knee injury from somebody who's tired. Stomping on somebody's head, or accidentally kicking a guy in the face, or accidentally stepping on somebody's hand, or enough, man. You're out there, you're a pro too. These other guys are getting paid, and they have families, and they have kids, and they have, whatever. And when you have somebody's career in your hands and you cheap shot it, you hit them clean, It breaks their neck, That's part of the terror, that just comes with it. But when somebody does something that's, I guess you call it unsportsmanlike, I think chicken shit is a much better apt description of it. And he gets away with it. He's been suspended, whatever. But nonetheless, none of that added up to anything other than making him the highest paid player defensively in the NFL. And I don't think it's good for the NFL. And I don't know what they're going to do about it. And I think they would be, if the guy had a career-ending injury, I don't think a whole lot of people in the NFL would really, be all that concerned, including maybe the Dolphins, who now realize, what did we buy? Now we can't get who? We can't have an offensive line because we have Damakong Suh. You could have put a hungry immigrant in there and said, "Go get this guy's trip somebody," and you would get two tackles in a game. And when you're on the defensive line, there's enough people right in front of you that every once in a while somebody has the ball. You just reach out and take a hold of them, and that's how you make a tackle. It doesn't mean you got in the backfield or did anything that you're supposed to do. So, speaking of that, Jason Pierre-Paul, man, did you find what's left of his hand? I thought he blew off his index finger. He blew off this part of his hand. His thumb is a nub. His index finger is gone, and his middle finger is mangled. So they, you know, and the guy was so close to signing a contract, Mark, didn't sign it. They had the offer on the table. Then on the 4th of July, he said, "Oh, this one didn't go off." Oh yeah, it did. and I mean, it was honest to God, I've held fireworks in my hand. It happened to go off in the guy's hand. It's not, he wasn't driving drunk. He wasn't shooting drugs. He wasn't, you son of a bitch. The thing went off in his hand and blew off half his hand. And he hadn't signed the offer, or the Giants would be on the hook. And now he's working out and he has a towel draped over his hand. I mean, he's lifting weights and he's doing like this on the weights. And there's the pictures are already really, he's doing like this. That's how his hands look. And, and so, but the pictures are already out of his hand. If you go online, you can see them, and it's not a happy thing. And the Giants, who could very well be 2-0, are 0-2, and are hurting for a pass rush. And there's Jason Pierre-Paul with half a hand, so I don't know what's going on there. The Dallas Cowboys are beat the hell up. If you're a Cowboys fan, you best be buying candles and rubbing rosaries, because Romo's out, Des Bryant's out, everybody's beat up. DeMarco Murray's in Philadelphia. So maybe Emmitt Smith will come back and Troy Aikman can still chuck the ball a little bit, because that's their really only hope for these next few games. I just don't see it, man. And boy, if ever there was something I'd bet on, it's the Dallas Cowboys not being very capable offensively. So, anytime I'm looking at a game total, I'm saying the Cowboys are in it, I'm just going to take the under and take my chances, because I don't see it. I think if they had somebody, close to Tony Romo or Des Bryant to step in, you would have already heard about them. And we didn't. I haven't seen them. So on to something happier, I suppose. I don't know, happier. All we talk about is half the stuff we talk about, but is police issues. We're going to talk. Let's talk a little bit about the Pro Bowl riders and JB Mooney and Ricardo Vieira. JB Mooney has moved into first place, even though he is way behind money winnings wise, because Vieira won the two big. NASCAR has. I mean, the PBR. It's easy to get them mixed up. Same crowd. The Pro Bowl riders have 4 majors, much like golf has the Masters and the British Open and the U.S. Open and the PGA. They have things that pay big extra points and extra money, and Vieira won them both. And so he's way ahead money-wise. I think he's more than $250,000 ahead of JB Mooney, but JB Mooney moved up enough in the points to be in first place. So last time out, they get to draft the bulls now. It used to be totally by chance, and somebody always thought there was a chance of manipulation there. So now they said, screw the manipulation. Where you are tells what bull you get to draft, and the guy at the end of the line doesn't have many choices. But he's got a few, and they're all good bulls. And JB Mooney took airtime. JB Mooney's in the hunt for a championship. And he drafted airtime. He had the first pick overall, and he drafted airtime. And airtime down him under. Airtime knocked him around. But that's what a championship's all about. JB Mooney is not just about winning the championship. He is about beating the bulls. He is about winning every last thing he can win, and I think that's what I love so much about the guy, is his just pure competitiveness.
Well, yeah. I mean, when we're at the PBR World Finals and we get to talk to these guys, and and I remember, I think it was two or 3 years ago, JB, of course, was in the top, and he was beat up, and someone asked him why I think he had picked Yellow Jacket
Yellow Jacket.
And and somebody was going, why?
Bushwhacker. Yeah,
that's what it was. Bushwhacker. And
he went right. And
I love JB's answer. You don't win championships on the easy bulls.
Yeah.
Either I'm going to get
what you score on.
Yeah, either I'm going to get a 90-point ride, or I'm going home. That's it.
Oh. Look at bulls he has ridden.
I mean, you just sit there and you look at him going, Damn.
Yeah, and he's always beat up. And Shane Proctor is in the hunt, and I think JB is married to Shane's sister, and
Yes.
they are. And that's always cool to have a family. Somebody's got your back, but all the cowboys have each other's backs. By the way, we're going to give a shout out to our friend Leah Garcia. She is one of, if not the finest, not only female sideline type reporters who does such a tremendous job with the Pro Bowl Riders. She is one of the finest. I don't care how many or what type of the chromosomes. Leah Garcia is the epitome of professionalism and is really the face and body and everything that's good about the Pro Bowl Riders. Leah Garcia is, and I've never seen a contemporary in broadcasting work as hard as Leah works and do as good a job. And we can go all year long without ever mentioning her. And because we're there live, you don't really see Leah working, and you see her up on top of the chutes here and then down. But when you watch the broadcast and you see the job she does, she's like Chris Angel. Now you see her, and now wait, how'd you get way the hell over there? 2 minutes ago you were right here, and she does a great job. She's incredibly knowledgeable, and they had If you follow Leah, you should follow Leah on Facebook. Yeah. Because she goes some incredible places. They were doing like breakfast in Greece and lunch in Turkey, and they did something this summer. It was awesome.
Well, it was funny because, you speak about her because she is a woman and she's in a predominantly male sport. Although there's a couple of women that are in.
Yeah. Uh-oh. We freeze framed.
You watch the women report on football, and they're basically on the sideline, and they got one spot. But you're right. When when you're media and you're in that mode and you're watching this woman, she's like a mouse in a maze. She will crawl through all the little holes to get to who she wants to talk to. Yeah. I have seen her damn near go up into the rafters to come down to get that in.
And she gets up close and personal. And you know what? These rough, tough Cowboys, they all respect her. The Brazilian contingent loves her. The group of Americans just, I don't think anybody's ever got a bad word to say about Leah, and that's as it should be. She is a true professional, and again, it's always cool to get a chance to mention Leah. The Pro Bowl Riders are coming here in October.
Yep. The
World Finals for the last time. Very, very sad about that. The last time at the Thomas and Mack this year. And boy, imagine the bull rides. Imagine the bulls that have been on the floor at the Thomas and Mack, including through the PRCA World Finals. Mark, that have been out here since what, 85?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's when they came out, and I saw Bodacious buck there. And you look at the bulls that have been there inside that arena. I don't know if it's almost like tearing down the Indianapolis Speedway. And okay, we're going to build another better one somewhere else. Okay, but it ain't going to be the same. It just ain't going to be the same. You got the Thomas and Mack, and then you got everything else. And I think one of the cool things for people is it's not connected to a damn casino.
Yes.
And casinos, I like casinos. I go into them and blah, blah, blah. But there's just something special when it's not ching, 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 and it's time. Everybody give us your money, and they keep on walking, and, try to keep down what you eat at the buffet, and then, and go on about your business. And I think it was always cool to have it someplace that wasn't absolutely connected to a casino, even though it was sponsored by the casino, the Mandalay Bay folks. Man, I had the greatest time, and Scott Bowler and Peggy, what a tremendous group it was to work with there, and when they had the Pro Bowl Riders did half at the start of the Mandalay Bay and then went to the Thomas and Mack for the second half. It was cool. It was almost like the playoffs in that you had two different arenas. They were configured totally different. At the Mandalay Bay, the chutes were just on one end, and the shark tank was there in the middle, and so the bulls kind of had a tunnel to run down. And at the Thomas and Mack, it's a pretty short little distance when they cut the thing in half, right there at half court. So You kind of get to stand there with Tark's ghost and take pictures of the bulls. I think Tark had been a hell of a bull rider. He was so bulldog tenacious. Okay, back to the police blotter. Patrick Kane of the Blackhawks was charged with sexual assault. Oh, we're gonna let's yeah. Here we go, folks.
Right before we get to the police blotter, because it's such a big
listening to Good Sports. Come back with NCIS Sports. With Mark Anthony, I'm Rick Rose, and this is Good Sports, and we'll be back after these brief commercial messages.
And we're back. There we go.
And we're back. Were we ever gone?
The police blotter. What is this week's police blotter? This is like a special section every week.
You can go to the potty, but now I'm good. Okay, it's too wet cleanup aisle 5. No, I'm good. Patrick Kane, formerly of the Blackhawks, the star of the Blackhawks' last 2 Stanley Cup titles, all of a sudden gets traded to the Buffalo Sabres. He's charged with sexual assault, rape of a cheerleader, and I don't believe it was a Blackhawks cheerleader, but anyway, the lady is known. Her name, and we're not going to say it here, is available, and her story, and whatever. Yesterday, the rape kit was found on her mother's doorstep, between the screen door and the door, opened and empty. Now, they've already done the testing on the rape kit. I don't know what the ramifications are criminally for that, but at least in Patrick Kane's, for his sake, no DNA in that rape kit belonged to him. The only thing that came from him was under the supposed victim's fingernails and on her shoulder. And it said it could have come from casual contact. Now, I don't know when we think of DNA, we're thinking, oops, sorry, honey, God, but I mean, I don't know what other DNA, maybe the guy spit on his hand or sneezed and then wiped it off on her shoulder and she scratched it off. But other than that, I'm pretty much sure they're talking about something left over after some type of sex act. None of his stuff was found below her waist. Okay. Now we're gonna split hairs here and whatever, but 2 other gentlemen's DNA were found in her vaginal area. So, I mean, if you look back, if you just go back and read the kind of stuff about Kobe Bryant and what happened with him in Colorado up near Vail, very similar circumstances. And a lot of people think this is a money grab, and I don't know. I haven't heard all the evidence or seen all the evidence. All I know is that's got to be a hell of a strange circumstance for a rape kit in such a high-profile case to come up missing and tampered with. First of all, you're a moron if you're the one that did that, because your career is over, and somebody's going to find out who had that chain of custody. And there's cameras and all those kind of things. So somebody is going to lose their job, if not go to jail, for this tampering with the evidence. I think if it was damning to Patrick Kane, it would have been worked on before, because it's more damaging to the alleged victim rather than Patrick Kane. Now you say, who has the motive to release this and to leave it empty on the victim's mom's doorstep?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a very, very bizarre thing, Mark. But again, now Patrick Kane's with the Buffalo Sabres, and this is a guy who's got 2 Stanley Cups right there on his mantle. He's got 2 of the little ones that said we won it, and his name is on the big one. So anyhow, I guess that's it for the police blotter, other than the usual, morons. Baseball, Mark, is winding down.
I always come back to Oscar. I always come back to Oscar.
Don't we all?
What he said about the NFL. If they're not in jail, in the off season, they're here in Las Vegas.
That's right. Do you know the difference between the guys in the NFL They end up in trouble with the law, and the rest of them,
What?
most of the rest of them didn't get caught. You know, they don't just catch the one Detroit Lion or the one Miami Dolphin or the one Patriot or the one Raider or the one, I mean, they happen to catch one, not the one. There is a big, big difference. And, there's, so I think it's very hypocritical to look at him and say, well, this guy's a criminal, and look at the rest of them. They're all, they're all straight as can be. No, they celebrate speaking of celebration, the Pittsburgh Pirates were at the Colorado Rockies and clinched a playoff berth. They will either be the wild card team or will actually win the Central in the National League. But they were on the road and clinched the playoff spot, and the Rockies provided champagne and they had a hat there that said playoffs and with the Pirates on there, and made the champagne glasses in the form of the Pirates logo and provided champagne in the visitors clubhouse. And for as nonsense a half-assed baseball organization that the Rockies are, they got this one about as right as you can get it. That's about as sportsmanship. That's about as sporting a thing as you can really have, Mark.
Yes.
Is to, do the right thing when it comes to an opponent, and maybe it's give the devil his due or whatever it is. But I do congratulate not only the Pirates for clinching a playoff spot, but for the Rockies in just saying, okay, we're all in the same boat, and hopefully someday it'll be us. Although the Rockies have already played in a World Series.
Yes, they have.
They're one of two teams in the last couple hundred years to get beat by the Red Sox. So in the World Series, but that's neither here nor there. The Twinkies are very near a wild. Twins are very near a wild card spot. It is coming down to the Twins, the Yankees, and the Astros in the American League for the two wild card playoff spots. And when I say Astros, if you haven't been paying attention, they are now in the American League, and they were doormats in the National League for so long. They just kept accumulating high draft picks and restocked their farm system, and all those kids played together. That's one of the cool things about doing it, being crappy, is you get your second round pick is in essence a late first round pick. There's not a great deal of difference. Now it's who needs what. So the guy could have gone in the first round, you get him in the second. So you damn near get two of everything. As you go down, you're amplified. So when you do that back to back to back years, those kids are all in the minors at the same time, and they learn how to play with each other, and what the other guy's going to do. So when they move them up, as the Mets did this year, they gutted the 51s. Mets are going to be in the playoffs. That's what it's about. That's what the farm system's for. So unless they make some changes or something like that, we got to see great baseball here in Las Vegas. Congratulations to the 51s. They got burned for the playoffs simply because the Mets took what was in essence one of the very, if not the very best, AAA teams, and so we need these extra 15 guys on our roster. And I think they only took a couple from AA, and everybody else really came from the 51s. And so it left the 51s wanting in that last little bit, but we got to see them the whole season. And boy, the Mets are loaded. But that's because they were crappy, and they kept these guys together by trades and didn't trade away the nucleus of what they have. Now, they're going to be something to be reckoned with. And I told you early on, the Cubs, when Joe Madden took over, I told you this spring, Mark, when we did the Major League weekend here in March, that the Cubs had a different attitude. And the couple Cubs that I talked to about it, I said, "What's the difference this year?" And the guy said, everything's different. He said the clubhouse is different. Our batting practice is different. And he meant the intensity. He meant the no more of this lovable losers crap. And the Cubs with Chris Bryant, I think a shoe-in for the National League Rookie of the Year, Las Vegas and Chris Bryant, and Rizzo and a bunch of other guys, and they got some pitching that's timely, and they have a bullpen that's effective. The Cubs are going to be in the playoffs, and so are the Mets. And we got to see them both here in Vegas, and that's really cool. The Pirates, as I said earlier, clinched a clinched a spot in the playoffs already. But it looks like to me that that's who's going to make it. To me, the AL, the Blue Jays, are up 3.5. And just before they got Troy Tulowitzki and David Price on July 31st, the trade deadline, and it was within a couple of days of that, they picked up both Troy Tulowitzki from Colorado and David Price came up from Tampa, I believe. They or maybe Detroit. Anyhow, the Blue Jays were 6 games behind the Yankees, and I said, Troy Tulowitzki's going to change that. And I was sure that David Price had a serviceable arm. I didn't realize he was going to be as good as he's been. I mean, just a steady rock right there in that in their rotation. But they were 6 games behind at that trade. Now you're talking month and a half, little more than a month and a half ago. Now they're 3.5 up. They're going to win. They are favored to win the World Series. So everybody that's going to, and a whole bunch of teams made trades at the trade deadline, and this one is the one that's going to work out if they go ahead and win the World Series. Everybody else did it for naught. So I don't know if that's a big thing, but people are going to look to that success and make trades next year too, hoping that they pick up that one guy or those 2 guys that change things. And Tulowitzki went in, and he's a hell of a leader. And he was a leader for the Rockies, and he did get to play in a World Series with them, and they had no chance of winning. And the Red Sox handed it to him, and they haven't been good since. And Tulowitzki spent a lot of good years trying to make the Colorado Rockies better. Evidence of that is he went to the Toronto Blue Jays, a team that was 1 player away, and he was that 1 player. And he changed their attitude in the clubhouse, just as Joe Madden has done with the Mets. Sometimes it's a manager, sometimes it's a player, sometimes it's a combination. Whatever it is, it's working. And it's working for the Cubs, and it's working for the Blue Jays. And I think it'll work for other teams. But in the American League, the Blue Jays are up 3.5, and Yankees and Astros and the Twins all fighting for that wild card spot. Kansas City is going to win the Central, and the Texas Rangers kind of come out of nowhere and look like they're going to walk away with it in the West. In the East, the Mets, the Amazons, the Mets, 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 are 6.5 games up with 10 to play. And 10 or 12, something like that. So they're the Mets are going to win the East. St. Louis is up. Pittsburgh and the Cubs look like the 2 wild card teams in the National League, and the Dodgers are up 7 over the Giants. Let me say that again. The Dodgers are 7 games ahead of the Giants, and we don't want to hear that. Giants win the pennant. We're tired of the Giants. So the Dodgers and Zach Greinke going to miss a turn in the rotation. Sometimes just to rest, give guy a day off. Everybody likes a day off now and again, and Greinke just to rest his arm up. They know they're in the playoffs comfortably. So, but anyway, that's how the baseball playoffs seem to be lining up, Mark. It's unfortunate when you look at the Twins, the Yankees, and the Astros. One of those 3 is not even going to make the playoffs. Of the remaining 2, one of them is not going to get to play more than 1 game. So of those 3 teams, 2 of them are going to share one game experience, and the winner of that 1 game, that wild card play-in game, I guess we should call it, is going to move on and then play. As it looks now, it will be the Blue Jays that they will meet in that first round, and they do the seeding thing and whatever. The stupid part of this whole deal, Mark, is that who won the Major League All-Star game? Do you remember?
No.
No, nobody else does either, except when it comes to the World Series. And now, okay, we're going to give home field advantage to the team whose league won the Major League All-Star game. All right, good. But why don't you do it with the real game? They play interleague games. That used to be the mystique of the World Series, is the only time an American League team and a National League team met was in the World Series. So the Dodgers and the Yankees could only meet in the World Series. And now they have the interleague play, and every team plays every other team within, I guess, 3 or 4 years. Every team has had a home and home with every other team in both leagues. So it just doesn't. It just took some of the mystique out of it. But they play these interleague games, and honest to God, the Rockies suck. And you just look at, wow, why don't they schedule the interleague games towards the last couple weeks of the season and have them mean something, and say, okay, we're going to take the winner of the All-Star game, and whichever league wins the percentage has the best winning percentage against the other league, which means all the teams in the league, including those that are going to benefit by having home field advantage, and those that just have league pride. Whether you're out of the hunt, 2 months ago, I think the Rockies were eliminated like 6 weeks ago, mathematically eliminated from having a shot. They've been realistically eliminated for a long time. Anyway, you could have a meaningful game. You could have, in the last couple days of the season, or the last day of the season, if you wanted, two very, very rotten teams playing for something. And you have your youngsters up. Your rosters have expanded to 40, so you've got young guys up. And they get some of that playoff experience by saying, our league will get the home field advantage if we beat the lousy Tampa Bay Rays in this meaningless game in late September, early October, and there's something riding on it. And I think baseball deserves that. And I think it's a sham that they have only the World Series winner. I mean, the World Series home field advantage predicated upon what league won the All-Star game, which is a beauty contest. And until the last inning or two, nobody really, managers aren't there saying, well, let me see, I got a left-handed reliever and a right-handed guy coming up, and all right, who's next? Until the very last, 3 or 4 years ago, they had a tie. They ran out of players. And now, instead of having like the Little League do a re-entry rule, okay, if you're running low on players, you can let this guy back in and, blah, blah, blah. No, they didn't have that. And so it ended in a tie. And that's how they came to this, let's make it meaningful. We'll have it be the reason that you get the home field advantage in the World Series. And I think they have two league versus league things that they should use, and they use the BS one. They use the nonsense game one, where they could use the interleague play all during the year. And if those two are different, then they could flip a coin for it, or I don't know, maybe head to head, because they will probably have played. If not, flip a coin, have a race, let the two, the ugliest guys in the league fight each other in a, I don't know. They could do something better than what they've got going. But hockey is already doing their preseason games. The NHL season that runs till midsummer is about to commence, and Las Vegas still does not officially have an NHL team, although we now have an arena with no parking. But that's beside the point. I saw a guy waste half a tank of gas the other day at Walmart, driving around and around and around. I thought it was out at the Speedway, and he was waiting for a parking place up close. Yeah. Now he passed 20 of them that were 4 or 5 parking places away. But he did that. By the way, speaking of going round and round and round, what are you doing Saturday night, Mark?
I think I'm gonna watch some trucks go around and around and around and around.
Where would you be doing that at?
Well, we've got that little track out north here next to Nellis, and
is that place still open?
NASCAR, baby, NASCAR.
Las Vegas Motor Speedway. Craftsman Truck Races, man. CTS, Craftsman Truck Series. And this is the guys. This is the minor leagues. There's no question about it. Very rarely do the Cup guys come down and run the trucks. Once in a great while, Kyle Busch will show up and win a race. Sponsorship being what it is. Yep. But it's good for these guys, and I think anybody that says that's not good experience for these cats has never competed athletically before, because you don't get better playing against somebody of your own abilities. You only get better by going against somebody who's got more abilities, more talent, or at least more experience, and you feed off of that and you learn from that. And so when the Cup guys come down to the Xfinity Series, some people bitch. And they alleviated some of it by saying you can't run for both titles. You can either run for the Cup title or you can run for the Xfinity title, but you can't do both. So there's going to be a separate champion from both. And also from the truck, some of the Xfinity guys come down because it's money. I mean, this is not a sport that makes men rich. It takes rich men to play it.
Yes.
And and so there's a lot of money, and so when there's money to be won, and you have the same crew and the same engines and all that stuff, and you switch out bodies, and there's not a tremendous amount of difference in what's underneath that truck and what's underneath an Xfinity car or a Cup car or whatever. Pretty much the same things. Body styles different, and aerodynamics. Obviously, there are some differences, but for the most part, there are things that go fast in circles. And every once in a while, they get them on a road course and see this is what the this is what the old guys just do to get away from the revenuers. A whole load of moonshine, Junior Johnson style. And anyhow, the truck series. Yeah, these are kids that are out there trying, man, and they're wanting to make that next level. And it's a night race here in Vegas. The weather's going to be perfect.
Yes.
They're expecting, from what I understand, they are expecting 80 degrees at the start of the race. At the green flag for the race, they're expecting to be 80 degrees. And if it's any more comfortable than that, I don't know what it is. I got, if I set my air conditioner at 80 degrees, I'm damn comfortable all day long. And it's going to be 80 degrees out there at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. Tickets are available. 702-644-4444. You just 7026 and then start dialing fours. And somebody says hello, stop dialing fours. That's all you have to do. And tickets are available. You can go to lvms.com. But we will be out there, Mark, and I think it's going to be an interesting race. We're coming down to the nitty gritty for the championship, and Matt Crafton up there, and several guys that you are going to see. Hopefully, at least they hope, certainly in the Xfinity series, if they stick around. Eric Jones, several of these guys move up and back and forth between those two, and then they take the next big step up. Chase Elliott drove the trucks. All the guys, the Dillons, several of them get there rolling up through the trucks, and we hope Brendan Gaughan's going to come race the trucks, because there's not many more exciting drivers in NASCAR, and I don't care what series it is, than Brendan Gaughan.
You got
maybe
that?
Maybe it's that Vegas, that Bishop Gorman thing from Vegas. But Brendan sees walls as just a somewhat of an, not a major impediment. Just, okay, I can bounce off it and make my move this way. So, you see maybe it is something in the air here in the water, but you look at Kyle Busch and Brendan Gaughan and even Kurt Busch, who does some pretty wild things. And I guess we could take Kevin Harvick, from Bakersfield, if we get to claim him. That's close enough for a couple hundred miles.
That's right.
Anyhow, they all seem to have their own little driving style that's a little more less laid back than other places.
That's a good way to say it.
So yeah, okay. Did you see Harvick push Jimmy Johnson?
Yeah.
Joey Logano hit Johnson, and you got people say, well, he ran into him. Yes, they were going 180 miles an hour, and he ran into him. Darn, somebody bumped him in his door. I would still be rolling over, or in ICU. You know what I mean? And he saved it, and the fact that he saved it off of Kevin Harvick's car certainly wasn't going to make Harvick happy. But I don't think Jimmy Johnson had a whole hell of a lot to do with how that came about, and I don't think Logano did a great deal wrong. It just happened to be, and I don't know if Kevin Harvick had a chance to get it to avoid it, but it cut his tire, and that pretty much if he comes back and wins the championship or defends his championship now, it's going to be one of the greatest stories ever in NASCAR, simply because of how the playoffs are set up. And if it wasn't for Clint Boyer screwing up and his team, Kevin Harvick would be last in line. But Clint Boyer and his team got a 25-point penalty. The owner's points was 25 points, which is totally meaningless now that they're not going to have a Michael Waltrip Racing anymore. So next year it won't bother them at all where they finished this year in the standings. So it's kind of a meaningless thing. Big money and whatever for not passing inspection or doing something on the, I think it was the wheel, the quarter panel near the wheel, or whatever they did. They've done it before, and they got like 18 things that they go to NASCAR.com and you can read the story. It's somewhat technical, but Boyer now in 16th and literally has no chance of winning. Harvick has a little better chance than that. 25 points is a huge hit. You have to beat everybody else by 25 positions all the time from here on out until you catch up. And then the guys that have already scored some, you know what I mean? It's virtually impossible. When they're going to cut to 12, okay, number 12, okay. I guess there's always Hail Mary and maybe a meteorite strike on the backstretch or something. But that's about it.
And then in December we've got NASCAR banquet, and the top guys do the strip. They light up the strip.
One of my favorite parts, Mark, is downtown on Fremont Street when they walk the red carpet down there. Oh man, and they interact with the fans. You watch what's going on with the Pope. It's damn near the same thing. People will hand their children to strangers to get them up by Jimmy Johnson or Kyle Busch or Jeff Gordon or whomever it is. They just literally, man, Dale Earnhardt, he could autograph any female body part that he would offer to. If he said, I got a Sharpie here and I'm willing to sign the next cute right ass cheek, you would see, it would look like nothing but bald monks down in prayer.
And some of them, and a couple of them might even be a woman.
Oh yeah. There's certainly no lack of volunteers. Have you been down on Fremont Street lately?
I try not to.
I went yesterday. I had something to do, and I had a layover to catch my bus, and it picks up right there around the corner. And so I walked down Fremont Street, and there's 3 males. I can't not call them gentlemen, who are out there in G-strings and some of the most obscene. God, it's obscene because of what it is in the first place, and you're out in the public. But this guy makes me look svelte. And he's got on bunny ears, Playboy bunny ears, and pasties, and a suspended G. Oh God, it's just disgusting. You know me, Mark. When it disgusts me, we have probably crossed a line that will cross damn near everybody else's line before you get to my line, and my line was crossed. And they've, God bless our city council and the mayor and our legal department that have worked feverishly to get this done with this ordinance, and they're going to they've worked with the ACLU, and God bless, they realize that other people have rights too, and so they've worked on this ordinance, and I hope it works because it is literally disgusting down there. And a place that can be used for, like I say, when Champions Week comes in and those guys walk the red carpet down Fremont Street, it is magical. It is, I don't know, rock stars or whatever. I've been in some pretty big groups. I put on a press conference. I set it up in Colorado when Oscar De La Hoya was rolling, and he was gonna fight Hector Camacho, the late great Macho Man Hector Camacho, and we put I had to set up the press conference there, and when Camacho spoke, people clapped, and a couple people asked for autographs. Lee Samuels from Top Rank spoke. A couple other dignitaries type spoke, and then Oscar De La Hoya went to the dais, and I mean, it was pandemonium. They rushed the dais, and this little kid was crushed. There were 10 people deep, and this little kid was crushed. And I was up on there and with Lee Samuels, and I had to straddle. We were at the Sheraton, and I had to straddle from the front edge to a window to keep people from getting to Oscar from behind. And I'm a big guy, Mark, and I had bruises on my legs from people trying to push past me to get. And this guy says, I'm trying to get to Oscar. I said, I know what the hell you're trying to do. And I look over, and this little kid was literally turning blue, and he was crushed up against that dais. And I said, Lee, and Lee Samuels looked up, and I pointed to this little kid, and you could just see both of us were like, uh-oh, and I took my hand, and I pushed on this babe, probably touched her politically incorrectly, and pushed on her to give Lee enough room to pull this kid up by the scruff of his neck and set him down behind Oscar De La Hoya. And the kid never so much as looked at Oscar's shoes. He was happy to be alive. He was this far from Oscar De La Hoya, who he damn near paid for his life with. and he was just like that. And finally, when he stood up, Oscar was done, and he moved on. And you know, but it was scary. But that's as close as I've ever been to that kind of pandemonium. And I'm telling you what, they do a great job downtown with all the people that work security and the hotels and the casinos and all that down there work in such good order to keep order, because it could be pandemonium like that with the NASCAR drivers. Because I'm telling you, when Dale Earnhardt Jr. starts walking down that red carpet, you can hear for the 2 blocks that you are away, Dale, 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 and they're everything out there to get autographed. And the guys are great in doing it. I mean, they take a long time walking down there, and they sign a lot of autographs, and you know, and take pictures. And now everybody's got their selfies, and they want that. So. But Fremont Street is a change, and I think it's a changing for the better. They're going to restrict the performers down there. So if it's something that's kept you away from down there, and it certainly would keep me away if I was a family man and I had my wife and kids with me, we can go see, you know, guys that are 90% naked and should be 90% covered down on Fremont Street, or we can go to the Strip, or we can go to Circus, or we can go, you know, there's other options. So I think they've taken a good step in the right direction, and at least getting it under control and saying, okay, let's, you know, this is a business, and you're affecting other people's businesses adversely. And so you know, when your rights, when your freedoms encroach on somebody else's freedoms, then somebody has to make a judgment. And I think they use good judgment. So, all right. Blue Jays are rolling. Yogi Berra, God bless, rest in peace. Cam Chancellor back with the Seahawks. Yeehaw. Patrick Kane, that odd thing. We'll keep you updated on that with the rape kit now empty and found on the victim's mother's doorstep. And the Pro Bull Riders coming here in October. JB Mooney up on top. Airtime, man, that black and white bull does get some airtime. What a very appropriately named animal. All right, you ready to roll?
I'm ready to roll.
All right, for Mark Anthony, I'm Rick Rosen. Thanks for listening right here on Good Sports. We'll talk to you again next week. Bye-bye.